The screams echoed through the crystal cities of Calyx Prime before they fell silent forever. The Crevan Reavers descended upon the peaceful world like a plague of locusts, their biomechanical warships blocking out the twin suns. The Velans never stood a chance. They were artists and philosophers, beings made of living crystal who spent their centuries creating beautiful sculptures and composing songs that resonated through their transparent bodies. They had no weapons, no armies, no defense against the monsters that came from the dark spaces between stars. Warcast Commander Thrak Zul watched from his flagship as his forces tore through the Velan settlements. His 4 eyes gleamed with satisfaction behind his tactical visor. The Reavers had perfected their method over 5 brutal years and 73 conquered systems. They struck fast, harvested everything valuable, and left nothing but ruins behind. The Velans possessed excellent communication technology, which would be stripped from their cities and integrated into Reaver ships. Their beautiful crystal structures would be melted down for raw materials, and their people would simply cease to exist. The attack lasted only 4 hours. When it ended, Calyx Prime was a dead world. But one Velan scientist had managed to send out a distress beacon before the end came. That signal traveled across space at faster than light speeds, carrying with it the final testimony of a dying civilization. 3 days later, that beacon reached the Galactic Concordat headquarters on Unity Station. The massive ring-shaped station orbited a neutral star, serving as the meeting place for dozens of different species. The emergency council chamber filled quickly as ambassadors rushed to respond to the crisis. The room was a bizarre mix of beings: insectoid Chittick with their clicking mandibles, the water-breathing Naveen in their environment suits, the towering Draxians with their scales and sharp teeth, and many others. Ambassador Lyra Vashin sat quietly in the human section, which was notably small. There were only 3 human representatives in the entire Concordat, a remnant of the complicated history between humanity and the rest of the galaxy. She was a tall woman with dark skin and gray-streaked hair, her face marked by the augmentation ports that most modern humans possessed. The Chittick ambassador clicked nervously, his translator device converting the sounds into standard galactic speech. "We must withdraw our border patrols. The Reavers are too strong. We cannot fight them. Cowardice will doom us all," growled the Draxian representative, his voice like grinding stone. "We should mass our fleets and face them in open battle." "We tried that twice already," the Naveen merchant prince said, his water suit bubbling as he spoke. "Both times we lost half our ships. The Reavers adapt too quickly. They steal our technology and use it against us." The argument went in circles as it had for months. The Galactic Concordat was not a true government, just a loose alliance. Each species protected its own interests first. Unity was impossible when survival was at stake. Lyra finally stood up, her movement silencing the chamber. Everyone turned to look at her. Humans were uncommon in Concordat space, and their reputation made others nervous. "The Reavers are heading towards Sector 447, she said simply. Her voice was calm but carried clearly through the chamber. "That sector borders the Terran Protected Zone." A wave of uncomfortable murmuring swept through the council. Several ambassadors shifted nervously. One of the smaller species let out what might have been a whimper. "Surely the humans will negotiate," the Chittick ambassador said hopefully. "They have no reason to fight. They have stayed behind their borders for 200 years. Perhaps they will let the Reavers pass through." Lyra smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You don't know my people very well. What can one isolated species do?" asked the Draxian. "We have seen no human ships outside their territory in 2 centuries. Perhaps they have grown weak. Perhaps they have no fleet at all. Perhaps," Lyra said softly, "or perhaps they have been building. 200 years is a long time." The council dissolved into worried speculation. Humanity's war of independence from the old Concordat was legendary and brutal. Back then, human ships were primitive by galactic standards, but human tactics were vicious and effective. They had fought the Concordat to a standstill, won their freedom, and then vanished behind closed borders. No one knew what they had been doing since then. Meanwhile, in Reaver-controlled space, Thrak Zul received an interesting report. His communications officer, a nervous, 4-armed creature from a conquered species, brought him the message with trembling limbs. "Commander, we have detected a single ship entering our territory. It is broadcasting a message on all frequencies." Thrak Zul rumbled with amusement. "One ship? What species is foolish enough to challenge us alone? It identifies itself as Terran, Commander. The bridge fell silent. Even the Reavers had heard whispers about humans. What does the message say? Thraxul demanded. The communications officer played it. A human voice speaking in standard galactic language, calm and cold. This is the Terran Commonwealth ship Indomitable. You have violated protected space and destroyed peaceful civilizations. Withdraw immediately to your original territory or be destroyed. You have 6 hours to comply. This is your only warning. Thraxul threw back his head and laughed, a terrible sound that echoed through the bridge. One ship against his armada of 300 warships? These humans were either insane or suicidal. Send the entire fleet to intercept, he ordered. I want to see what these legendary humans can do. Bring me their ship intact if possible. I wish to study their corpses. The Reaver fleet changed course, moving toward the coordinates where the human ship waited. 300 biomechanical warships, their hulls covered in stolen technology from dozens of conquered species, their weapons charged and ready. They had never been defeated. They had crushed every opposition, but none of them had ever faced humanity before. The TCS Indomitable hung in the darkness of space like a predator waiting for prey. The battleship stretched 3 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull a dark gray that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Weapons bristled from every surface. Massive magnetic acceleration cannons, railgun batteries, missile pods, and point defense laser turrets. To anyone who understood warship design, the Indomitable looked like it was built for one purpose only: to destroy everything in its path. Captain Elena Rourke stood on the bridge, her hands clasped behind her back as she watched the tactical display. Neural implants fed information directly into her brain, giving her a complete picture of the battle space. She was a lean woman in her 40s with short brown hair and the calm demeanor of someone who had seen combat many times before. Around her, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency at their stations. Reaver fleet is 3 hours out, reported Lieutenant Keiko Tanaka from the sensor station. Confirmed 300 ships. Looks like they brought everything they have in this sector. Good, Rourke said simply. Commander Torres, what is the status of our weapons? Commander James Torres looked up from the tactical station. He was a stocky man with dark hair and the build of someone who had spent time as a Marine before becoming a ship officer. All Mackey cannons charged and ready. Railguns at full capacity. Point defense grid online. Missile tubes loaded. We are ready to engage, Captain. Engineering, how are our reactors? Chief Engineer Marcus Webb's voice came through the communication system from deep in the ship. Fusion reactors running at optimal levels, Captain. I can push them to 110% if you need it, though the safety systems will complain. Rourke allowed herself a small smile. I suspect we will need it, Chief. Stand by. She turned to look at the main view screen, which showed the empty space ahead. Soon that space would be filled with enemy ships, 300 against 1. The Galactic Concordat had lost battles against smaller Reaver fleets. But the Concordat did not understand how humans fought. 200 years ago, humanity had been forced to fight for survival. The old Concordat wanted to control Earth's resources and had demanded humanity submit to their authority. Instead, humanity had unified and fought back. It had been a brutal war. Human ships were outmatched by alien technology, but humans refused to surrender. They developed new tactics, new weapons, and most importantly, a new way of thinking about combat. While other species fought carefully, trying to minimize losses and preserve ships, humans fought to win at any cost. They calculated that losing ships was acceptable as long as they achieved their objectives. They discovered that aggression and speed could overcome superior technology. They learned to fight close, to take risks, to do things that made other species call them crazy. After winning their independence, humanity had closed its borders and spent 2 centuries building. They built shipyards around every planet. They built factories on asteroids. They poured everything into developing the most advanced military force possible. And they kept it all hidden behind their borders, letting the galaxy wonder and worry about what humans were doing in isolation. Now the galaxy was about to find out. Captain, receiving tight beam communication from Concordat space, said the communications officer. Ambassador Vashon wants to know if we need support. Tell her we appreciate the offer, but we are sufficient for this engagement, Rourke replied. Inform her that she may want to position observer drones to record what happens next. The Concordat should understand what they are dealing with. The waiting continued. In the crew quarters, Marines checked their weapons and armor. In engineering, teams made final adjustments to systems. In the medical bay, doctors prepared for casualties. Everyone knew what was coming. Finally, the sensors detected the Reaver fleet dropping out of faster-than-light travel. 300 ships materialized in a huge formation, surrounding the Indomitable's position. They were ugly vessels, their hulls cobbled together from stolen technology. But they were dangerous, covered in plasma cannons, ion beams, and missile launchers. Thraxel's face appeared on the view screen, transmitted from the Reaver flagship. He was a massive creature, his body covered in biomechanical armor, his 4 eyes glowing with hostile intelligence. "Human ship," he growled. "You are surrounded. You cannot escape. Surrender now and your death will be quick." Rourke stepped forward so the Reaver commander could see her clearly. "This is Captain Elena Rourke of the Terran Commonwealth. You were given warning. You chose not to listen. What happens next is your responsibility." Thraxel laughed. "1 ship against 300. You are brave fools. I will enjoy—" Rourke made a cutting gesture and the transmission ended. "Battle stations. All crew, this is the captain. Execute Protocol Alpha. Show them what humanity has learned." The bridge lights shifted to red. Alarms sounded throughout the ship. The Indomitable's powerful engines came to full power and the battleship began to move. The Reaver fleet opened fire. Plasma torpedoes streaked through space, glowing balls of superheated matter. Ion beams lanced out, invisible except where they ionized stray atoms. Hundreds of missiles launched, their engines burning bright. It looked like enough firepower to vaporize a moon. It all converged on the lone human ship. The Indomitable did not dodge. Its advanced shield generators flared to life, creating overlapping fields of energy that deflected or absorbed the incoming fire. Missiles that got through the shields were picked off by the point defense lasers, hundreds of precisely aimed beams destroying the warheads before they could detonate. The few hits that landed on the hull splashed harmlessly against armor plating, designed to withstand incredible punishment. When the barrage ended, the Indomitable was still there, completely undamaged. Then it fired back. The twin Mac cannons on the forward hull launched their first rounds. Massive tungsten slugs, each one the size of a telephone pole, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. They crossed the distance to the Reaver fleet in seconds. The first round punched through a Reaver cruiser's shields as if they did not exist. It penetrated the hull, passed completely through the ship, and came out the other side before hitting 2 more ships behind it. All 3 vessels exploded. The second Mac round destroyed 4 more ships with a single shot. The railgun batteries opened up. Smaller but faster, they created a continuous stream of hypervelocity projectiles. Dozens of Reaver fighters and destroyers simply came apart under the withering fire. Then the Indomitable did something that made every witness freeze in shock. Instead of keeping its distance like any sensible warship would, the human battleship accelerated directly toward the Reaver fleet at incredible speed. The Indomitable plunged into the heart of the Reaver fleet like a knife through flesh. Its fusion engines burned at maximum power, pushing the massive battleship to speeds that should have been impossible for a vessel of its size. The distance between the human ship and the Reaver formation closed in seconds. Captain Rourke's neural implants fed her tactical data faster than conscious thought. Her mind processed hundreds of targets, threat assessments, firing solutions, and maneuver options simultaneously. To her crew, she appeared perfectly calm. Inside her augmented consciousness, she was fighting a battle at the speed of light. "Target the cruiser at bearing 270, she ordered. "Fire Mach 1. The magnetic acceleration cannon fired. The recoil was so powerful that the entire battleship shuddered despite its size and inertial dampeners. The tungsten round crossed 3,000 kilometers in an eye blink and struck the Reaver cruiser dead center. The ship's shields flared, held for a microsecond, then collapsed. The round punched through the hull, through the reactor core, and out the far side. The cruiser exploded in a ball of plasma. "Direct hit," Torres reported. "Mach 1 reloading, 8 seconds. 8 seconds was an eternity in space combat, but the Indomitable had other weapons. The railgun batteries never stopped firing. Each gun launched magnetically accelerated projectiles at a rate of 600 rounds per minute. With 24 railguns firing, the ship was throwing out a wall of metal that simply erased anything it touched. Reaver destroyers tried to evade, but their ships were designed for long-range combat. They were slow to maneuver, The railgun rounds tore through their hulls, venting atmosphere and crew into space. Some ships tried to return fire, but the Indomitable was moving too fast and too unpredictably. The human battleship juked and weaved through space like a fighter craft. Impossible for a ship of its size, but made possible by engines that pushed the boundaries of physics. Enemy fighters launching, Lieutenant Tanaka reported. Count is over 400. Point defense grid. You may engage, Rourke said calmly. The Indomitable's hull was covered with small laser turrets, each one computer-controlled and capable of tracking multiple targets. As the Reaver fighters swarmed toward the battleship, the turrets came alive. Hundreds of precisely aimed laser beams lanced out, each one finding a target. Fighters exploded by the dozen. The few that made it through to launch missiles found those missiles destroyed before they could arm their warheads. On the Reaver flagship, Thraxul watched in growing disbelief as his fleet was torn apart. His tactical display showed ship after ship going dark. The human vessel was inside his formation now, using his own ships as obstacles, making it impossible for his forces to fire without hitting each other. All ships, Titan formation, he ordered. Concentrate fire on the human ship. It was a mistake. The tighter formation made it easier for the Indomitable's weapons to hit multiple targets with each shot. A single Mac round passed through 5 Reaver ships before its momentum was finally stopped. The railguns swept through clusters of vessels, leaving nothing but debris. But Thraxul had one more card to play. The Reavers had stolen gravitic technology from a long-dead species and weaponized it. The gravitic mine was their secret weapon, capable of creating a localized black hole that would consume anything nearby. Launch the mine, Thraxul commanded. Target the human ship directly. A small sphere ejected from the Reaver flagship. It began to glow with an eerie purple light as its generators spun up to full power. In 30 seconds, it would activate and create a gravitational singularity. Nothing could survive that. On the Indomitable, the sensors detected an unusual energy signature. The computer analyzed it in milliseconds and flagged it as a critical threat. Captain, detecting exotic radiation from bearing 035, Tanaka called out. Unknown weapon type, but energy levels are off the scale. Rourke pulled up the analysis through her neural link. The weapon was powerful enough to destroy her ship, and it was too close to shoot down with conventional weapons. She had 3 seconds to make a decision. Full power to engines, she ordered. Emergency burn directly toward the weapon now. The engineering crew hesitated for just a moment. Accelerating toward a superweapon seemed insane. But then Chief Webb's voice came through, steady and certain. You heard the captain. Reactors to 120%. Safety protocols overridden. The Indomitable's fusion engines flared brighter than stars. The battleship shot forward with acceleration that should have liquefied the crew. But the inertial dampeners held. The ship covered the distance to the gravitic mine in under 2 seconds and passed it. Behind them, the mine activated. Reality itself seemed to tear open as the artificial black hole formed. But the Indomitable was already past it, and the weapon's gravity well pulled inward, not outward. A dozen Reaver ships that had been pursuing the human vessel were caught in the field. They were crushed into nothing in an instant. Thraxul stared at his display in horror. The human ship had done the impossible. It had escaped his ultimate weapon by charging directly at it. What kind of species were these humans? What kind of captain would take such a risk? Commander, the human ship is broadcasting something, his communications officer said quietly. What are they saying? They are listing our ship losses. They are broadcasting tactical data showing how outmatched we are, and they are offering surrender terms. One time only. Around the Reaver fleet, 40 ships broke formation. Their captains had seen enough. They transmitted surrender codes and shut down their weapons. They would rather face whatever punishment awaited them than continue fighting this nightmare. Thraxul roared in fury. Cowards! Traitors! He immediately ordered those 40 ships destroyed by his own forces. The Reaver fleet turned on its own, plasma cannons firing at the surrendering vessels. The Indomitable noticed. Captain Rourke's jaw tightened as she watched the Reavers execute their own people. These creatures have no honor, she said quietly. Commander Torres, you are authorized to go weapons-free. Show them what happens when you execute prisoners. The Indomitable's full arsenal opened up. Every Mac cannon, every railgun, every missile launcher fired simultaneously. The barrage was so intense that space itself seemed to light up. Reaver ships exploded by the dozens. Their biomechanical hulls, designed to adapt to different weapon types, could not adapt fast enough. The sheer volume of fire overwhelmed everything. In 10 minutes, over 200 Reaver ships were destroyed or disabled. The survivors, including Thraxul's flagship, broke off and fled toward the edge of the system where they could jump to faster-than-light travel. The Indomitable did not pursue. It had made its point. Captain Rourke stood on her bridge watching the fleeing Reaver ships disappear from sensors. Her ship was damaged in a dozen places. 3 crew members were dead, 17 injured. But they had won a victory that would be remembered across the galaxy. "Open a channel," she ordered. "Broadcast on all frequencies, maximum power." When the channel opened, her voice carried across space to every listening ship in a dozen star systems. "This is Captain Elena Rourke of the Terran Commonwealth ship Indomitable. The Reavers have been defeated. Any species under threat from the Crevan Reavers is now under Terran protection. We will not tolerate aggression against peaceful civilizations. This is not a request or a negotiation. This is a statement of fact. The Terran Commonwealth has returned to galactic affairs." The news spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. A single human warship had faced 300 Reaver vessels and won. The recordings, captured by concorded observer drones, were analyzed and reanalyzed by every military power. The numbers did not lie. The humans had destroyed over 200 ships while sustaining minimal damage themselves. It was not just a victory. It was a demonstration of overwhelming superiority. On Unity Station, the Galactic Concordate Emergency Council reconvened. The chamber was more crowded than before, with representatives from species that had previously ignored concordate affairs suddenly very interested in what was happening. The holographic displays showed footage from the battle, frozen at the moment when the Indomitable charged directly at the gravitic mine. The Chittick ambassador clicked nervously, his mandibles trembling. "This changes everything. We thought the humans were isolated, weak. We were wrong." "One ship," the Draxian representative said, his voice a low growl. "That was only one ship." "How many do they have?" Ambassador Lyra Vashin stood and the room fell silent. Every eye and sensor organ turned toward her. She had remained quiet during the initial reaction, letting the other species process what they had witnessed. Now she spoke with calm authority. "The TCS Indomitable is a Dreadnought-class battleship," she began. "It is a mid-tier capital ship in the Terran Commonwealth Navy. There are 213 vessels of similar or greater capability currently in active service. Additionally, we have 47 super dreadnoughts that are significantly more powerful. We have over 3,000 support vessels, and we have shipyards capable of producing more." The silence was absolute. Several ambassadors looked physically ill. The Naveen merchant prince's water suit bubbled frantically as he tried to process the information. "Why?" asked a small furry creature from the Pelin Collective, its voice barely audible. "Why did you build so much?" "Why did you hide it?" Lyra's expression softened slightly. "Because 200 years ago, the Concordate tried to conquer Earth. We won our freedom, but we learned a hard lesson. The galaxy is dangerous. Peace only exists when you have the power to defend yourself. So we spent 2 centuries making sure that no one would ever threaten humanity again. And now you return as the greatest military power in the galaxy." The Draxian said. "It was not a question." "We return as a species that will not tolerate bullies," Lyra corrected. "The Reavers threatened peaceful civilizations. They threatened species that could not defend themselves. That is unacceptable to us." The Chittick ambassador found his courage. "What do you want from us? Territory? Resources? Submission?" Lyra shook her head. "We want security. We want to ensure that what happened to the Velans does not happen again. We want to make sure that aggressive species learn there are consequences for their actions. And yes, we want trade and cultural exchange. We have been isolated too long." Before anyone could respond, a priority message came through. A surviving Velan, one of only a few thousand who had been off-world during the attack, appeared on the holographic display. The crystalline being's body pulsed with colors that the translator converted to speech. "The humans saved us," the Velan said simply. "They avenged our dead. They protected us when no one else could. We formally request Terran protection and offer our full support to humanity." Over the next hour, 6 more species made similar requests. The Concordate was fracturing. Species were choosing sides and most were choosing humanity. The Draxian representative surprised everyone by speaking up. "My people respect strength. We respect warriors who fight with honor." The humans demonstrated both. The Draxian Empire proposes a formal military alliance with the Terran Commonwealth. The Naveen merchant prince quickly added, The Naveen clans wished to establish trade agreements. Human technology would be valuable. We can offer economic networks spanning half the galaxy. Even the religious seraphim, who usually stayed out of political matters, sent a message. Their prophet speaker's words were broadcast to the entire Concordat. The balance was broken. The strong preyed upon the weak with no consequence. Now the balancing force has arrived. This was foretold in our ancient texts. The humans are the sword that cuts both ways, dangerous to enemies, protection for the innocent. Not everyone was happy with humanity's return. Several species feared that humans would become the next dominating power. Some argued for an alliance to contain human expansion, but those voices were quiet, drowned out by the practical reality that humanity had just saved the galaxy from a threat no one else could stop. Captain Rourke and a small delegation traveled to Unity Station for formal discussions. When they arrived, they were greeted with mixed reactions. Some species watched with fear, others with gratitude, a few with calculation, already wondering how to benefit from this new power dynamic. The formal council session was tense. The Concordat Chancellor, an ancient being from a species of energy entities, addressed Rourke directly. Captain Rourke, your demonstration of force was impressive, but force alone does not make you righteous. What is to stop humanity from becoming the next threat? What is to stop you from conquering us all? Rourke stood, her posture straight and military precise. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of dozens of alien species. When she spoke, her voice was firm but not aggressive. Nothing stops us, technically, she admitted, and several ambassadors gasped. We have the military capability to conquer much of the Concordat if we chose to. But we do not want your territory. We do not want to rule over you. We want something that is far more valuable. What? The Chancellor asked. We want to be able to sleep at night knowing our children are safe. We want to live in a galaxy where aggressive species face consequences. We want to trade, to learn, to share cultures. And yes, we want respect. We earned that respect by doing what you could not, stopping the Reavers. The Draxian representative stood. Then let us formalize it. A mutual defense treaty. The Terran Commonwealth and the Galactic Concordat working together. The debate went on for hours, but eventually the treaty was drafted. Humanity would provide military protection for Concordat space. In return, humans would have access to trade networks, cultural exchange programs, and equal standing in the Council. It was not submission. It was partnership. As the Council debated the final details, an urgent message arrived from Reaver territory. The transmission was picked up by long-range sensors and immediately flagged as Priority 1. Thraxul had reached Reaver High Command. Instead of admitting defeat, he had convinced the overlords that humanity was a threat that needed to be eliminated immediately. The Reavers were preparing their ultimate weapon, something they had held in reserve for decades. The planet killer was being deployed. Ambassador Lyra went pale as she read the report. This is a moon-sized vessel. It has never been defeated. It has a main cannon capable of cracking a planet's crust. They are sending it toward the Helios system. The Helios system was home to 3 terraformed moons with human colonies. 12 million civilians lived there. And the planet killer was heading directly toward them. Captain Rourke's expression hardened. She activated her neural link and sent an emergency message to Terran Command. Looks like we are going to need those other ships after all. The planet killer emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Helios system, and every sensor in the sector screamed warnings. The vessel was massive beyond comprehension, a moon that had been hollowed out and converted into a weapon. Its surface bristled with thousands of gun emplacements, shield generators, and armor plating. At its front, a cannon the size of a city prepared to charge. When that weapon fired, it would not just destroy a ship, it would destroy a world. On the 3 terraformed moons of Helios, evacuation sirens wailed. 12 million people rushed to transport ships, but everyone knew there was not enough time. The planet killer would be in firing range in 6 hours. Even if every transport launched immediately, millions would be left behind. But humanity was not running. Battlegroup Valkyrie materialized in the system in a synchronized faster-than-light jump that displayed the precision of Terran navigation. 8 battleships, including the Indomitable, 23 cruisers, 47 destroyers, over 300 support craft. The largest human fleet ever assembled for combat, and they were not alone. Draxian warships jumped in on the fleet's right flank, their brutal wedge-shaped hulls ready for battle. Felon defense platforms hastily converted from mining stations, took up positions around the moons. Naveen merchant vessels, armed with whatever weapons they could mount, joined the formation. Even the Chittick, despite their fear, sent a squadron of fighters. The concordant species had decided, if humanity was willing to fight for them, they would fight alongside humanity. Captain Rourke stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, now serving as the flagship for the entire fleet. Her neural implants connected her to every ship in the battle group, creating a network of shared information that moved at the speed of thought. She could see through 1,000 sensors, coordinate hundreds of weapon systems, and process tactical data that would overwhelm an unaugmented mind. All ships, this is Captain Rourke, she broadcast. The enemy believes their size makes them invincible. They believe one massive weapon can defeat us. They are about to learn what it means to fight humanity and her allies. We do not retreat. We do not surrender. We fight and we win. All ships attack formation Delta. Execute. The combined fleet moved as one, spreading out into a three-dimensional formation designed to attack from multiple angles simultaneously. The Terran ships took point, their heavy armor and shields allowing them to absorb the most punishment. The Allied vessels supported from behind, adding their firepower to the human assault. The planet killer opened fire first. Thousands of plasma cannons launched a barrage that looked like a red storm crossing space. Ion beams created a deadly web of energy. Point defense systems tried to sweep the approaching fleet from the sky. The Allied ships took losses immediately. 3 Chittick fighters simply vanished in balls of superheated plasma. A Draxian cruiser's shields failed and the ship broke apart. But the fleet did not slow down. They had all known the cost. They had all chosen to pay it. The Terran battleships led the charge, their shields flaring constantly as they absorbed hit after hit. The Indomitable was struck by a plasma torpedo that would have vaporized any normal ship, but its shield generators held and the armor plating underneath remained intact. Return fire, Rourke ordered. All MAC cannons target the shield generators. Concentrated fire. The 8 human battleships fired their magnetic acceleration cannons in perfect synchronization. 16 massive tungsten rounds, each one moving at a significant fraction of light speed, struck the planet killer's shields at the same instant. The combined force was incredible. The shields flickered, wavered, and in one small section, failed. Target acquired, Torres reported from the tactical station. We have a gap in their shields. All ships focus fire on Sector 7 Alpha, Rourke broadcast. Pour everything into that gap. The combined fleet obeyed. Hundreds of weapons fired at the single weak point. Railgun rounds, plasma torpedoes, missiles, and energy beams all converged on the same location. The planet killer's armor began to glow red, then white, then started to vaporize. But the massive vessel's main cannon was almost fully charged. If it fired on the moons, millions would die instantly. The evacuation was not complete. The planet-cracking weapon had never missed, never failed. Commander James Torres turned to Rourke. Captain, I have an idea. It is crazy, but it might work. I am listening, Rourke said. The planet killer is designed to destroy targets at range. Its defenses are all external. But every large ship has exhaust ports. We send in a marine team, infiltrate through the thermal exhaust system and sabotage the reactor from inside. Rourke pulled up the schematics through her neural link. The plan was insane. The exhaust ports were small, heavily shielded, and protected by internal defenses. Any team that went in might not come back, but it might work. Who would lead this team? She asked, though she already knew the answer. I would, Torres said simply. I was a Marine before I became a bridge officer. I know what I am doing. Rourke was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. Do it. Take your best people. But Commander, you come back alive. That is an order. Torres smiled. Yes, ma'am. Within minutes, Torres and a team of 20 Marines launched in stealth pods, small craft designed to avoid detection. The Indomitable and the other battleships increased their assault, drawing all of the planet killer's attention to the frontal attack. The enemy did not notice the small pods slipping through the chaos toward the rear of the massive vessel. The pods landed on the planet killer's surface near the exhaust ports. The Marines cut their way inside using plasma torches, moving quickly through narrow maintenance tunnels that were never designed for combat. Reaver defenders waited inside, but the human Marines were trained for close-quarters battle. Kinetic rifles barked in the confined spaces. Grenades detonated, Hand-to-hand combat broke out when ammunition ran low. Torres led from the front, his rifle picking off targets with practiced precision. The Marines fought their way deeper into the vessel, following Torres's navigation toward the reactor core. They lost people. A Marine named Davis was cut down by Reaver plasma fire. Another Rodriguez was crushed when a bulkhead collapsed. But the survivors pushed forward. Outside, the main battle raged. The Allied fleet was taking heavy casualties, but they were winning. The gap in the planet killer's shields was growing larger. Terran cruisers launched waves of missiles that penetrated deep into the vessel's structure. Draxian ships rammed damaged sections, their captains choosing to sacrifice themselves to cause more destruction. Inside, Torres and his remaining 12 Marines reached the reactor core. It was massive, a fusion reactor the size of a city block pulsing with incredible energy. Torres immediately saw the problem. Sabotaging it would require overriding multiple safety systems and detonating all their remaining explosives at precise points. And they would need time. "Set the charges," Torres ordered. "We have 2 minutes." "Commander, 2 minutes is not enough time to evacuate," one of the Marines said. Torres looked at his team. They all knew what he was about to say. "Then we do not evacuate. We finish the mission." The Marines nodded. No hesitation. No argument. They had all volunteered for this. They spread out, planting charges while Torres worked on overriding the reactor controls. His augmented hands moved faster than human reflexes should allow, his neural implants helping him bypass alien security systems. 1 minute left. The planet killer's main weapon was almost fully charged. On the surface, sensors detected the massive energy buildup. In 30 seconds, it would fire on the colonies below. Torres finished the override. "Charges set. Everyone, get to the escape route." "What about you, Commander?" asked Sergeant Chen, the senior Marine. "I need to manually activate the detonation." "Go." "That is an order." Chen hesitated, then saluted. "It has been an honor, sir." The Marines ran. Torres watched them go, then turned to the reactor controls. Through his neural link, he sent one final message to Captain Rourke. "Mission accomplished, Captain. Tell my family I died doing something that mattered." He activated the charges. The planet killer's reactor core overloaded. The safety systems tried to shut it down, but Torres had disabled them all. The fusion reaction went critical. At the same moment, all the explosives detonated. The combined effect created a chain reaction that tore through the massive vessel structure. The main weapon misfired, its energy release destabilizing as the reactor exploded. Instead of firing at the colonies, the weapon's energy fed back into the planet killer itself. The moon-sized vessel simply came apart, breaking into millions of pieces in an explosion that could be seen from 3 star systems away. Commander Torres and 3 Marines who had stayed behind with him died instantly. But the colonies below were saved. 12 million people lived because 21 humans chose to sacrifice themselves. On the Indomitable's bridge, Captain Rourke stood silently, her jaw tight. Around her, the crew bowed their heads in respect. Throughout the fleet, human ships lowered their flags to half-mast. The Allied vessels, learning what had happened, did the same. The Reaver fleet, watching their ultimate weapon destroyed, lost their will to fight. Ships began to surrender. Within an hour, the remaining Reaver forces had either given up or fled. The Reaver Dominion, which had seemed unstoppable, collapsed. 3 weeks later, a memorial service was held on Unity Station. Representatives from dozens of species attended. A monument was erected, listing the names of all who had died in the battle, with special honor given to Commander Torres and his Marine team. Ambassador Lyra Vashon spoke at the ceremony. For 200 years, the galaxy wondered what humanity had become. Now you know. We became protectors. We became warriors who would rather die than let innocent people suffer. We became exactly what we always were, stubborn, determined, and absolutely unwilling to accept defeat. The unstoppable force met its match, and the galaxy will never be the same. Captain Rourke stood before the monument, her hand raised in salute. Behind her, the TCS Indomitable waited in dock, already being repaired for its next mission. The Terran Commonwealth had returned to galactic affairs, and they had made their position clear. Bullies would face consequences. The innocent would be protected, and humanity would stand guard no matter the cost. The era of Reaver domination was over. A new era had begun.